Have you ever watched your own family turn against you over something you never asked for? No. So imagine this. You're at your sister's engagement party, 200 guests, lawyers, doctors, university deans, all watching. And your mother just handed you a stack of documents on the terrace demanding you sign over your grandmother's lakefront cottage as an engagement gift to your sister. You say no, and her palm connects with your face so hard your glasses fly across the stone floor. That was my reality. The 15th of June, 2024. They expected me to cry, to apologize, to surrender like I always had. Instead, I picked up my glasses, walked out, and made one phone call. 1 hour later, a woman walked into that reception. When my mother saw who it was, she started screaming because the person she told everyone was senile and gone had just arrived with a lawyer and proof of everything she'd been hiding. Before I continue, I want you to understand something. This story isn't about revenge, it's about what happens when you finally stop being silent. Now, let me take you back 3 years to where this all began. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March 2021. I was sitting in my small apartment in the Arts District, eating leftover pasta and reviewing grant proposals for a nonprofit client, when my grandfather's name lit up my phone screen. Hazal, sweetheart, Harold Freeman said, his voice steady as it had always been. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. My grandfather had been an aerospace assembly supervisor for 37 years before retiring. He didn't waste words. So when he told me he was updating his will and leaving me the cottage at Lake Serena, the one he'd purchased in 1985 for $75,000, now valued at over 800,000, I set down my fork and listened. Why me? I asked, not because I didn't want it, but because I genuinely didn't understand. Because you're the only one who visits, he said simply. Every Sunday for 12 years, Hazal, while your mother sends Christmas cards and your sister sends nothing at all. You bring me those terrible fruit tarts from the bakery because you remember they're my favorite. You sit with me when I have nothing interesting to say. You listen to my stories about the assembly line and my woodworking projects. I felt tears prick my eyes. Grandpa, the paperwork will be finalized next month. Gregory Nash is handling everything. He's been my attorney for 15 years. He paused. Your mother will not be pleased. That, as it turned out, was the understatement of the decade. The news leaked to my family within weeks. I still don't know how. Maybe someone at Gregory's firm mentioned it to someone who knew someone. Our community's legal circles are smaller than people think. All I know is that by April 2021, my mother had organized what she called a family discussion at her six-bedroom home in the historic district. I remember walking into that living room and seeing the way they were all seated, my father Robert in his leather armchair, my mother Diane on the settee. My sister Lauren perched on the arm of the couch like she was posing for a photograph. They'd arranged themselves like a tribunal. Hazal, my mother's voice was honey over broken glass. We need to talk about your grandfather's condition. His condition? I sat down on the only empty seat, a straight back chair that faced all three of them. He seems fine to me. He's clearly not thinking straight. Diane crossed her legs, her designer bracelet catching the light. Leaving an $800,000 property to one grandchild, excluding everyone else, that's not the behavior of a rational man. He's not excluding anyone, I said. He's giving me something he wants me to have. That's his right. Lauren let out a small theatrical sob. This is so unfair. I've always loved Grandpa. I just don't have time to visit like you do. I have a career. I have a life. You have a trust fund and a fiance with a boat, I thought, but didn't say, the fair thing to do. My father spoke for the first time. His voice, measured in that way construction project managers cultivated, would be for you to decline the inheritance or at least agree to sell the property and split the proceeds equally among family members. I stared at him. Robert Sterling, who hadn't asked me a single question about my life in years. Robert Sterling, who'd missed my college graduation because of a scheduling conflict that turned out to be a fishing trip, that Robert Sterling was now telling me what would be fair. I'm not declining anything, I said, and I'm not selling anything. Grandpa made this decision because he wanted to. If you have a problem with it, talk to him. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Diane's smile vanished. Then I hope you're prepared, she said, for the consequences of being so selfish. The consequences came swiftly. By summer 2021, I had been quietly removed from the family text chain. I learned about Lauren's engagement party through a social media post. A photo of her surrounded by our cousins, champagne glasses raised at a venue I recognized as the Lakeside Pavilion. The caption read, Future Mrs. Sterling Caldwell with 3 diamond emojis. No one had told me, no one had invited me. When I asked my mother about it, she said, Oh, we assumed you wouldn't want to come. You've been so busy with your little writing projects. My little writing projects were a community journalism career with a circulation of 40,000 and a part-time teaching position at the community college. But to Diane Carver, anything that wasn't a corporate law degree or a wealthy husband was just a hobby. The worst part wasn't the exclusion. It was what came with it. The stories Diane began telling anyone who would listen. Hazal manipulated my father. I overheard her say at a neighborhood gathering I'd shown up to uninvited. Visited him constantly, turned him against the family. You know how vulnerable elderly people can be. She painted me as a predator, a schemer, the ungrateful granddaughter who'd exploited a confused old man for profit. And through all of it, I never once corrected her publicly. I never made a scene. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I just kept my head down, eventually the storm would pass. I didn't understand yet that silence was exactly what she was counting on. What I also didn't understand was why Grandpa Harold had moved into Serenity Pines Senior Living in late 2021, a beautiful facility in the neighboring town that costs $8,000 a month. He told me he wanted peace and quiet. He told me he was tired of the drama. But sometimes when I visited him on Sundays, I caught something in his eyes, a flicker of something that looked almost like fear. Grandpa, I asked once, did something happen between you and Mom? He looked out the window at the manicured gardens for a long moment. Some things are better left alone, he finally said. At least for now. I let it go. I shouldn't have. 3 years would pass before I understood what he was hiding and why he'd chosen to hide it. 3 months before the engagement party that would change everything. I was in my small home office on a Friday afternoon, editing a piece about local small business owners when the mail arrived. Among the bills and catalogs was an envelope of heavy cream cardstock. My name written in calligraphy so elaborate it took me a moment to decipher it. Inside was an invitation. Lauren's engagement party. The 15th of March, 2024. The Grandview Hotel, black tie. For a full minute, I just stared at it. After 2 years of being treated like a ghost, no holidays, no birthdays, no casual texts, they were inviting me to the engagement party. My phone rang that same evening. Hazal, darling. Diane's voice was warm, almost affectionate. I hadn't heard that tone since before the inheritance news broke. Did you receive Lauren's invitation? I did. Wonderful. This engagement party is going to be such a beautiful opportunity for our family to heal, to move forward. She paused meaningfully to show everyone that the Freemans are united. I waited. I've been thinking, she continued, and there it was, the real reason for the call. This would be the perfect time to revisit our conversation about the cottage. Lauren and William will need a place to live after the wedding, somewhere appropriate for a young couple starting their life together. I closed my eyes. Of course, the invitation wasn't an olive branch. It was bait. Mom, the cottage is mine. Grandpa left it to me. That hasn't changed. Nothing has to change, sweetheart. You could simply transfer the property as an engagement gift. Think of how generous that would look. Think of how proud Grandpa would be to see you supporting your sister. The audacity of it took my breath away. Using my grandfather, the man who had specifically chosen to give me that cottage, as an argument for why I should give it away. I'm not transferring anything. The warmth evaporated. Lauren deserves a proper start. She's marrying into the Pemberton family. Do you understand what that means? William's father is a managing partner at Sterling and Associates. They'll be entertaining, they'll be hosting, they need a home that reflects their status. Then William's father can buy them one. Silence stretched between us. When Diane spoke again, her voice was ice. I expect you to think carefully about this before the engagement party, and I expect you to make the right choice. She hung up. I sat in my office as the winter sun set, casting long shadows across my desk. I understood exactly what was at stake now. If I went to that party and refused again in front of everyone Diane had spent decades cultivating relationships with, she would make me pay. She would tell every guest that I was the selfish, ungrateful granddaughter who'd ruined her sister's special day. She would weaponize the entire community establishment against me. My reputation, my career, my future opportunities, so many of which came from word of mouth in exactly those circles. But if I didn't go, that would be its own kind of surrender. Proof that I was too ashamed to show my face, proof that I had something to hide. I considered skipping it. I really did. But something in me refused. I had done nothing wrong. I had accepted a gift from someone who loved me. I would not be made to feel like a criminal for it. I RSVP'd yes. 1 week before the engagement party, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Grandpa Harold, sweetheart, he said, his voice carrying that particular urgency I'd only heard a handful of times in my life. I need you to listen carefully. I'm listening. If something happens at that party, and I believe something will, I want you to call Gregory Nash immediately. The number is 617-555-0142. Can you write that down? I grabbed a pen. Grandpa, what are you talking about? What's going to happen? Your mother thinks I don't know what she's planning. She forgets that I was solving complex mechanical problems before she was born. I've prepared everything, Hazal. Gregory has all the documents. If you need them, they're ready. Documents? What documents? Just remember the number. And remember, he paused, that I love you. Whatever happens, I love you. He hung up before I could ask anything more. I saved Gregory Nash's number in my phone, not understanding why my hands were shaking. I wouldn't understand until I walked through the doors of the Grandview Hotel and saw what was waiting for me. The Grandview Hotel rose above the city like a monument to old money and older traditions. I'd driven past it hundreds of times in my life, but walking through those gilded doors as a guest, as a Freeman, felt different. It felt like walking into enemy territory. The ballroom was breathtaking. White lilies cascaded from crystal chandeliers, a 12-piece jazz ensemble played Gershwin in the corner, waiters in black ties circulated with champagne flutes and canapes on silver trays. Every detail screamed expense, taste, and Diane Carver's personal touch. 127 guests. I'd counted the chairs during cocktail hour. Lawyers, doctors, investment bankers, old families whose names appeared on hospital wings and university buildings. These were the people my mother had spent 3 decades impressing. Her audience, her witnesses. I wore a navy blue dress, elegant but not attention seeking. I had debated for hours about what to wear, knowing that anything too expensive would be called showing off the cottage money, and anything too simple would be embarrassing the family. In the end, I chose something that simply felt like me. Robert found me near the ice sculpture, a swan, naturally, 10 minutes after I arrived. Hazal. My father nodded, his eyes sliding past me like I was a piece of furniture he was trying not to bump into. Glad you could make it, Dad. We stood in silence. After 32 years, we had nothing to say to each other. Lauren appeared in a cloud of white tulle and crystals, her veil trailing behind her like a promise of the life she'd always believed she deserved. She hugged me, arms circling but not quite touching, the way you'd embrace a stranger at a networking event. Hazal, you came. Her smile was camera ready. Perfect teeth, perfect makeup, perfect performance. Of course I came. You're my sister. She pulled back and her expression shifted. Subtle, calculating. Did you bring the paperwork? I blinked. What paperwork? Mom said you'd have the transfer documents ready by today. Lauren's voice was light, almost playful, but her eyes were hard. For the cottage, our engagement gift. So this was it. They'd already decided among themselves that I would comply. The invitation, the phone call, the reconciliation theater, all of it was just a prelude to this moment. Lauren, there are no transfer documents. What do you mean? I mean, the cottage is mine. It's not a gift. It's not up for discussion. Her perfect smile flickered. But Mom said, I don't know what Mom told you. I kept my voice low, steady. But I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever. Lauren's jaw tightened. For a moment, she looked exactly like Diane. The same flash of fury barely contained. You know, William and I were planning to move in after the honeymoon. We already told the realtor we wouldn't need the condo in the city. We already told everyone. You told everyone about a cottage that doesn't belong to you. It should belong to us. Her voice rose slightly. You don't even need it. You live in that little apartment in the arts district. You don't entertain. You don't have anyone to impress. What's the point of you having an $800,000 cottage? The point. What was the point of me having anything nice, anything valuable, anything that suggested I might matter as much as she did? I'd spent my whole life being asked that question in different ways. The point, I said quietly, is that Grandpa wanted me to have it, and his wishes matter more than your real estate plans. Lauren stared at me. Then she leaned in close, her expensive perfume overwhelming. Mom's gonna handle this, she whispered. And when she does, don't say I didn't warn you. She swept away toward a group of bridesmaids, leaving me standing alone by the melting swan. I moved toward the bar, needing something to steady my nerves. But before I could order, a woman in a cream silk suit stepped into my path. I recognized her. Patricia Monroe, one of Diane's tennis partners and the wife of a prominent physician. You're Hazal, aren't you? Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Diane's mentioned you. I bet she has. I heard you're holding on to some property for your grandfather, Patricia continued. That's very responsible of you. Will you be selling it soon? There it was. The narrative Diane had been spinning. I wasn't the heir. I was the caretaker, the temporary custodian of assets that would eventually be distributed properly. Actually, I said, I live there. Patricia's eyebrows rose. Oh, I thought, well, never mind what I thought. She excused herself quickly, disappearing into the crowd. I stood alone in that sea of silk and judgment, understanding finally what I was up against. Diane had been preparing this battlefield for years. Every conversation, every social event, every carefully placed comment, all of it was groundwork. And tonight, she intended to collect. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to go. The March air was cold enough to bite, but after the suffocating warmth of the ballroom, I welcomed it. I leaned against the stone railing, looking out over the city lights, trying to slow my racing heartbeat. That's when my phone buzzed. Grandpa Harold. I answered immediately. Hello, my dear girl. His voice was calm, almost too calm. Tell me what's happening. I glanced through the glass doors at the glittering crowd inside. How do you know something's happening? Because I know my daughter. A pause. Diane has been planning something for weeks. She's been making phone calls, gathering people, building her case. She thinks, I don't know because I'm locked away in my retirement home. The disdain in Harold's voice was palpable. She forgets that I have friends who actually like me. I almost laughed. Almost. What is she planning? I don't know exactly, but I know it will happen tonight while she has her audience. That's how Diane operates. She needs witnesses. She needs people to validate her. Harold's voice softened. Hazal, do you remember the number I gave you? Gregory Nash's number? I have it saved. If anything happens, anything at all, call him immediately. He's expecting your call. He has everything ready. I pressed my back against the cold stone. Grandpa, what is everything? What are you not telling me? Silence stretched across the line. 6 months ago, Harold finally said, Your friend Michael came to visit me. Michael Vance. We'd been friends since freshman year of college. He was an advertising account executive now, but he'd always had a nose for stories. He'd mentioned a few months back that he was looking into some irregular property transactions in the area, but I hadn't connected it to anything specific. He came to visit you. Why? Because he found something strange. A property sale in 2020, a house in the countryside that belonged to me, a house I never sold. My breath caught. What do you mean you never sold it? I mean exactly that. Your mother sold it for $275,000. She forged my signature on the documents. The world tilted slightly. I gripped the railing. Grandpa, I didn't want to believe it either. That's why I hired experts, a company called Forensic Document Services right here in the city. They analyzed the signatures. The probability of forgery was 98.7%. 98.7%. That wasn't doubt, that was certainty. Why didn't you tell me? My voice came out hoarse. Why didn't you go to the police? Because she's my daughter. Harold's voice cracked just slightly before he steadied it. Because I hoped. I still hope that there might be some explanation. Some reason that isn't what it looks like. But we both knew. We both knew there wasn't. That's why you moved to Serenity Pines, I said, understanding flooding through me. Not because you wanted peace and quiet, because you couldn't stand being around her. I couldn't trust her, Hazal, and I couldn't prove anything without destroying everything. So I removed myself. I protected what I could protect, the cottage, my remaining assets, and I waited. For what? For Diane to make a mistake. Harold's voice hardened. Tonight might be that mistake. If she pushes too far, if she exposes herself publicly, then Gregory has everything he needs to respond. The forensic report, the original transaction documents, witnesses who saw me during the time I supposedly signed those papers. I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I couldn't have signed anything. I closed my eyes, absorbing the weight of it all. My mother hadn't just tried to manipulate me. She'd stolen from her own father, she'd committed fraud, and she'd let Grandpa Harold take the blame for not being rational when he'd changed his will. Hazal, Harold's voice pulled me back. I'm not telling you this to make you hate your mother. I'm telling you because you need to understand what you're dealing with. And you need to know that if she corners you tonight, you're not alone. You have never been alone. I heard the jazz band start up again inside, a swing number that felt grotesquely cheerful. What do you want me to do? Whatever happens, don't sign anything. And if it goes badly, if she pushes you beyond what you can bear, call Gregory. Tell him the documents are needed. He'll know what to do. A pause. When Harold spoke again, I could hear the smile in his voice. If Gregory calls me, I'll be there within the hour. I've been waiting 3 years for this, darling. I'm not going to miss it. He hung up. I stood on that terrace for a long moment, cold wind whipping my hair. Then I straightened my shoulders, smoothed my dress, and walked back into the ballroom. I was ready, or at least I thought I was. Dinner had been served and cleared. The toasts had been made. Robert's stiff, perfunctory speech about legacy and family values. William's father waxing poetic about the merger of two great families. Lauren's maid of honor telling a story about their sorority days that made everyone laugh politely. I sat at table 14 near the back of the ballroom with a collection of distant cousins and family friends who seemed unsure why I was there. Fine by me. I wanted to be invisible. But Diane Carver had other plans. The clink of metal against crystal cut through the room's chatter. My mother stood at the head table, champagne flute in hand, microphone in the other. Her smile was radiant. Her designer gown glittered under the chandeliers. If I could have everyone's attention, she said, I'd like to take a moment for something very special, a family tradition that Lauren has asked me to facilitate. I felt the first prickle of warning at the base of my spine. As many of you know, the Freeman family believes in taking care of each other. We support each other. We make sacrifices for each other. Diane's eyes swept the room, landing briefly on me before moving on. And tonight, in the spirit of that love, I'd like to invite my eldest daughter, Hazal, to join me up here. 127 pairs of eyes turned toward table 14. I didn't move. I couldn't move. Hazal, sweetheart. Diane's voice carried a note of gentle encouragement that I knew was performance. Come on up, honey. Don't be shy. What choice did I have? If I refused, I would be the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the sister who ruined Lauren's engagement party with her stubbornness. I stood. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I walked through the maze of tables, past the whispered comments and curious stares, up to the raised platform where my mother waited with her serpent smile. There she is. Diane put an arm around my shoulders, a gesture of affection for the audience, a grip of control for me. Now, everyone, Hazal has been holding on to something very precious. My father, Harold, left her a beautiful cottage on Lake Serena, $800,000 in value. Quite an inheritance. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw Patricia Monroe nod knowingly. Hazal has been keeping it safe, Diane continued, waiting for just the right moment to share it with the family. And what better moment than this? Lauren's engagement party, the start of her new life with William. She produced a folder from somewhere. I hadn't even seen her holding it. She opened it to reveal a thick stack of legal documents, transfer of deed, quitclaim agreement, my name already typed in the signature lines. All Hazal needs to do is sign. And this incredible gift will help Lauren and William start their marriage in a home that truly reflects their future. The room actually applauded. They applauded like this was a heartwarming moment, like I was about to perform an act of sisterly love, not be publicly coerced into giving away my inheritance. Mom, my voice was quiet but steady. I'm not signing this. Diane's smile didn't waver. Don't be nervous, sweetheart. It's just paperwork. It's not just paperwork. It's the cottage Grandpa Harold left to me, not to Lauren, not to the family, to me. The applause died. The silence that replaced it was deafening. Hazal. Diane's grip on my shoulder tightened. Her voice dropped, but the microphone still carried it. Let's not make this difficult. I'm not making it anything. I'm telling you no. Lauren appeared at the edge of the platform, her face a mask of wounded innocence. Hazal, you're really going to do this on my engagement night? Lauren, I didn't ask to be called up here. I didn't ask to be put on display. You all set this up without even asking me because we knew you'd be selfish, Lauren spat. We knew you'd choose that stupid cottage over your own family. The cottage isn't stupid when you want to live in it. William's father coughed uncomfortably. A waiter near the kitchen doors looked frozen in place, a tray suspended in air. This was not the elegant evening anyone had envisioned. Diane's composure finally cracked. Her face reddened. Her voice rose. You ungrateful child. The microphone amplified every syllable. After everything we've done for you, after we raised you, educated you, supported your little writing career, you can't do this one thing for your sister. You didn't support my career. You've never even read a single article I've written, and you didn't raise me. Grandpa did every summer while you were at conferences and galas and anywhere else that wasn't home. Gasps scattered through the audience. I'd said too much. I knew it, but I couldn't stop. The cottage is mine because Grandpa wanted me to have it, because I was there, because I cared, and no amount of public humiliation is going to change that. Diane's hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap connected with my left cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. My glasses, the ones Grandpa Harold had given me for my 30th birthday, flew off my face and bounced across the marble floor with a sound like breaking glass. The room went absolutely silent. For a moment, I stood perfectly still. My cheek burned, my vision blurred. I could feel every eye in that ballroom boring into me, waiting to see what I would do. What I did was breathe. I bent down. I picked up my glasses. One lens was cracked, but they were still intact. I put them back on carefully, methodically. Then I looked at my mother. That's the last time you touch me, I said. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. I turned and walked off the platform, through the tables, past the whispers and the stares and the jazz band that had stopped playing midnote, out the double doors of the ballroom and into the lobby. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I found a quiet corner near the concierge desk, pulled out my phone, and dialed the number I'd saved a week ago. It rang once. Gregory Nash's office. This is Hazal Bennett, I said. My voice was calm, steady, certain. Please tell my grandfather that the documents are needed. Understood, Miss Bennet. He'll be there within the hour. I hung up. Then I sat down on a velvet bench, touched my stinging cheek, and waited. 1 hour. That's all I needed. 1 hour until everything changed. I was still on that velvet bench when the main doors of the Grandview Hotel opened and my grandfather walked in. Harold Freeman was 78 years old. He moved with a cane now, his gait slower than I remembered from my childhood. But everything else about him radiated the same formidable presence that had made him one of the most respected supervisors at the aerospace plant for 3 decades. He wore a gray cardigan over a simple white shirt. His silver hair was combed back neatly, and beside him walked Gregory Nash, mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, charcoal suit, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it contained the weight of the world. Grandpa. I stood up, and for a moment my composure cracked. You came. He crossed the lobby and took my face in his hands, examining my cheek with eyes that missed nothing. She hit you? Yes. Harold's jaw tightened. Then he kissed my forehead gently, the way he had when I was a child and had fallen off my bicycle. Then let's finish this, he said. We walked into the ballroom together. The engagement party was in chaos. Clusters of guests huddled in conversation, their champagne forgotten. Lauren was crying, actually crying this time, while William and his parents hovered nearby, looking mortified. Diane stood near the head table, gesturing emphatically to Robert, who seemed to be trying to calm her down. No one noticed us at first. Then someone gasped. Then someone else. And then Diane turned and saw her father walking toward her across the marble floor. Dad. The word came out strangled. Diane's face went white. What are you? How are you? I'm here for my granddaughter's engagement party, Harold said. His voice carried across the suddenly silent room. I wasn't invited, of course, but I decided to come anyway. I hope Lauren doesn't mind. Lauren, mascara streaming down her cheeks, could only stare. What is this? Diane's voice rose. What are you doing here? I'm doing what I should have done 3 years ago. Harold stopped about 10 feet from his daughter, close enough for everyone to hear. I'm telling the truth. He turned to face the assembled guests. 127 people, many of them lawyers and judges and professionals who understood exactly what was about to happen. My name is Harold Freeman. I was an aerospace assembly supervisor for 37 years. I am of sound mind, and I am here to confirm that the cottage at Lake Serena, the property my daughter has been publicly demanding my granddaughter surrender, was left to Hazal Bennett in my will, dated the 14th of June, 2019. That will is legal, valid, and enforceable. There are no other claims to that property. Gregory Nash opened his briefcase and withdrew a document. This is a certified copy of Mr. Freeman's will, notarized and filed with the county probate court. I've been his attorney for 15 years and can attest to its authenticity. Diane's face contorted. This is absurd. Dad, you're confused. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Harold's voice was ice. What you don't understand is that I've been watching you for 3 years. I've been watching. He nodded to Gregory, who withdrew a second set of documents. These are transaction records for a property in the countryside. A property that was deeded in my name until the 12th of September 2020, when it was sold for $275,000. The room went completely silent. I could hear the ice melting in abandoned champagne buckets. I did not sell that property, Harold continued. I could not have sold that property. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks that fall, recovering from pneumonia. I signed nothing. I authorized nothing. Diane's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Gregory produced a third document. This is a forensic analysis report from Forensic Document Services, a certified firm specializing in handwriting analysis. They examined the signature on the countryside sale documents against authentic samples of Mr. Documents. Freeman's handwriting. He turned to the room, his voice carrying the weight of courtroom authority. Their conclusion: the signature is inconsistent with Mr. Freeman's authentic hand. Probability of forgery, 98.7%. Murmurs erupted through the ballroom. I saw William's father, the managing partner at Sterling and Associates, exchange a significant look with another attorney near the bar. You're lying, Diane's voice cracked. This is all fabricated. You're senile, Dad. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm sharp enough to hire experts, Harold replied. I'm sharp enough to preserve evidence, and I'm sharp enough to have forwarded this entire file to the county district attorney's office last week. The color drained completely from Diane's face. You, you didn't. Forgery and fraud, Diane. Up to 5 years in prison under state law. Harold's voice was almost gentle now. The same tone he'd once used to explain complex mechanical systems to new employees. I didn't want to believe my own daughter could do this. I gave you 3 years to confess, to make it right. But instead, you spent those years slandering my granddaughter, calling her a manipulator, calling me senile, trying to steal her inheritance the same way you stole my property. Diane spun to face Robert. Robert, say something. Stop this. Robert Sterling, who had stood silently through everything, took a step backward. I didn't know, he said. His voice was flat, empty. I didn't know about the countryside house. You signed the transfer. I signed what you told me to sign. I didn't know it was forged. The room watched in horrified fascination as 35 years of marriage disintegrated in real time. Lauren finally spoke, her voice small and broken. Mom, what is Grandpa talking about? Diane didn't answer. She couldn't answer. She stood in the center of her own carefully constructed stage, her perfect engagement party, her perfect audience, and everything was falling apart. Harold turned to me. His eyes were tired, sad, but resolute. Hazal, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry I waited so long. It's okay, Grandpa. I took his hand. I understand. He squeezed my fingers. Then he looked at Diane one last time. You lost me the day I discovered what you'd done. Tonight, everyone else just got to see the truth. He paused. I hope someday you find it in yourself to take responsibility, but I won't hold my breath. He turned toward the exit. I walked beside him. Behind us, I heard Diane start screaming, incoherent denials, accusations, demands that someone do something. I heard William's parents say something sharp and final to Lauren. I heard the murmur of the crowd crescendo into a roar of gossip and speculation. But I didn't look back. Not once. We made it to the lobby before William caught up with us. I heard his footsteps first, the quick, sharp click of expensive dress shoes on marble. I turned, expecting anger, maybe threats. What I saw instead was calculation. Mr. Freeman, William Pemberton addressed my grandfather directly, not even glancing at me. I think we should talk about this privately. There may be some misunderstandings that can be cleared up. Harold regarded him with the same expression he probably used on particularly dim-witted trainees. There are no misunderstandings, Mr. Pemberton. But surely the whole countryside situation, I mean, families have disputes. Paperwork gets complicated. If we could just sit down with the lawyers. The paperwork was forged. My daughter committed fraud. Those aren't disputes, they're crimes. William shifted his weight, and I watched his mask slip. Underneath the polished veneer, I glimpsed something desperate. The cottage. Lauren mentioned that you might be reconsidering your will given the circumstances. The engagement, the new family. Perhaps there is a way to. Mr. Pemberton, Harold's voice cut like surgical steel. I'm not reconsidering anything. The cottage belongs to Hazal. It will continue to belong to Hazal. And if you're asking whether I'll give my remaining assets to a granddaughter who just got engaged to a man willing to beg at a hotel lobby door, the answer is no. William's face reddened. For a moment, I thought he might say something ugly. Instead, Harold smiled. That particular smile that made people nervous. You married into the wrong family, young man. And frankly, given what I've seen of your character tonight, Lauren is welcome to you. He turned away from him without another word. Gregory Nash stepped forward, blocking William's path. I'd advise you to return to your engagement party, Mr. Pemberton. Anything you say now could be relevant to ongoing investigations. William Pemberton, son of a managing partner at one of the region's most prestigious law firms, suddenly looked very young and very scared. He retreated without another word. We stepped out into the cold March night. The air smelled like impending rain, and the streetlights cast golden pools on the pavement. "Grandpa," I said, my voice thick, "I'm so sorry about the engagement party. About the scene, about all of it." He patted my arm. "Don't be sorry. I've been waiting 3 years to say those things. It felt wonderful. Despite everything, I laughed. It came out raw and broken, but it was real. What happens now?" Gregory answered, his voice measured and professional. "The district attorney's office will proceed with their investigation. Mr. Freeman has provided substantial documentation. Whether charges are filed will depend on their review, but the evidence is compelling." "And Diane?" Harold's face softened with something that might have been grief or might have been relief. It was hard to tell. "That's up to the courts now. I've done what I needed to do. The rest is out of my hands." I thought about my mother still in that ballroom, surrounded by the people she'd spent her life trying to impress, watching everything she'd built crumble. Part of me felt a savage satisfaction, but a larger part just felt tired. "I'm not doing this for revenge," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was telling them or myself. "I'm not doing it to punish her." "No," Harold agreed. "You're doing it because some things can't be allowed to continue. Some lies can't be permitted to stand." He looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "There's no cruelty in telling the truth, Hazal. There's only clarity." A town car pulled up to the curb. Gregory had arranged it while we were inside. "I should get your grandfather back to Serenity Pines," he said. "It's been a long evening." Harold waved a dismissive hand. "I'm not fragile, Gregory, but yes, I am tired." He turned to me. "Come visit tomorrow. We have a great deal to talk about, and I want to hear how your writing is going. Really hear it, not the polished version you give me. I'll be there." He hugged me, a real hug this time, not the performative embrace Diane had given me on that stage. I held on longer than I probably should have. "I love you, my dear girl," he murmured. "I love you too, Grandpa." He climbed into the car with Gregory's assistance. I watched as it pulled away, disappearing into the night. I stood alone on the sidewalk for a long time. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael Vance. "Just saw the legal beat guy tweet something cryptic about a prominent local attorney. Was that?" I typed back. "I'll explain later. Thank you for everything." Another text. This one from a number I didn't recognize. "Hazal, it's Eleanor Granger from the university. We were at the engagement party. I owe you an apology. I believed things I shouldn't have. If you're ever interested in discussing a writing project for the university's alumni magazine, please call me." I stared at the screen. Eleanor Granger, Dean of Liberal Arts, one of the women I'd seen whispering with Patricia Monroe earlier that evening, now offering me a professional opportunity. I wasn't sure if I'd call her, but I saved the number. Then I put my phone away, pulled my coat tighter against the cold, and walked toward the parking garage. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout was swift and measured. 2 weeks after the engagement party, Diane Carver was summoned to the county district attorney's office for questioning regarding the countryside property sale. The interview lasted 4 hours. When she emerged, according to what Gregory later told me, she looked 10 years older. Her attorney, a colleague from her social club who'd originally agreed to represent her, withdrew from the case within days, citing conflict of interest. The real reason, I suspected, was that he'd seen the evidence and wanted nothing to do with a losing battle. Or perhaps he'd heard from enough mutual friends that continuing to represent Diane would damage his own standing in the community. My father moved to a hotel on March 28th. The Grandview, ironically, because even in crisis, Robert Sterling maintained appearances. He released a statement through a family friend stating that he was seeking space to process recent revelations and had no prior knowledge of any improper transactions. Whether anyone believed him was another matter. His signature was on the transfer documents alongside Diane's. Claiming ignorance only worked if people were inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt. And after 30 years of standing silently beside his wife, Robert had used up most of his goodwill. Lauren and William postponed their wedding indefinitely. I heard from a cousin that William's parents had concerns about the financial entanglement and wanted their son's legal exposure clarified before the couple traveled internationally. The dream of moving into my cottage was, of course, dead. The social consequences unfolded more quietly but with devastating precision. On April 3rd, Diane received an email from the Community Foundation, the charitable organization whose annual gala she'd co chaired for 17 years. The subject line read, "Your invitation status has been updated." The body was brief and corporate. Due to circumstances requiring legal resolution, her involvement in the upcoming gala was under review pending further developments. Translation: she was disinvited. The local bar association opened an ethics inquiry after two attorneys who'd attended the engagement party filed formal complaints. The complaints didn't allege anything Diane had done to them. They alleged conduct unbecoming of an officer of the court. The investigation was ongoing. On April 10th, a small item appeared in the community newspaper's legal beat column, written by a reporter I recognized from Michael's newsroom connections. Local attorney under investigation for alleged document fraud in 2020 real estate transaction. The county DA's office confirmed the investigation is active, but declined to comment on specifics. The attorney, whose name has not been released, is reportedly connected to a prominent local family. No names. But in a community as insular as ours, no names were needed. Everyone knew within hours. I received 11 text messages that week from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some were apologies, some were expressions of support, a few were clearly fishing for gossip, which I ignored. The message that mattered most came from Eleanor Granger at the university. She followed up her engagement party text with a formal email. Subject: sincere apologies and a professional inquiry. Hazal, I want to begin by apologizing properly. At the engagement party, I made assumptions based on things Diane had told me over the years. Watching what actually happened that night, watching how you handled yourself with such dignity under impossible circumstances, made me ashamed of my own credulity. I don't expect forgiveness, but I would like to offer something concrete. Our university is launching a new alumni magazine, and we're looking for a writer who understands professionalism, discretion, and good storytelling. If you're interested, I'd love to discuss the project. Please let me know either way. And again, I'm sorry. Eleanor, I sat with that email for 3 days before responding. Part of me wanted to reject it, to refuse anything that came from Diane's social circle, but another part recognized that Eleanor Granger wasn't Diane. She was someone who'd been lied to, who'd believed those lies, and who was now trying to make amends. I took the meeting. The project was substantial. A full redesign of the university's alumni magazine. Budget substantial. Timeline 6 months. It was the largest contract I'd ever landed. By May, I'd received two more project inquiries from people who'd been at the engagement party. Word was spreading, not just about Diane's downfall, but about my work. People who dismissed me as the Freeman granddaughter with the hobby writing career were suddenly curious about the Freeman granddaughter who'd stood her ground. I didn't trust all of them. I vetted every client carefully, asked pointed questions about how they'd heard about me, and turned down one project from someone who seemed a little too eager to pump me for information about Diane's case. But slowly, carefully, I began to rebuild. Not just my career, my sense of who I was. The strangest development came in early May. I received a certified letter from a real estate attorney in the countryside informing me that the 2020 sale of Harold's property was under legal review and that the current owners had been notified of potential title defects. Gregory explained what this meant. If the original sale was voided due to fraud, the buyers might have claims against Diane for the purchase price. The property itself could potentially revert to Harold's estate. It's complicated, he said, and it could take years, but the wheels are turning. Diane Carver, who had spent her life accumulating status and property and social capital, was watching it all slip away. I won't pretend I didn't feel some satisfaction in that, but mostly I felt something closer to peace. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about the world finally recognizing what was true. June 2024, 3 months after the engagement party. I'm sitting on the porch of my cottage, watching the sun set over Lake Serena. The sky is streaked with orange and pink, and the water reflects it all like scattered jewels. It's the kind of evening my grandfather always loved: big skies, quiet moments, a glass of lemonade, and nowhere to be. He's here now. In fact, Harold comes every Sunday. I pick him up from Serenity Pines in the morning, and we spend the day together. Sometimes we go to the museum. Sometimes we just sit here on this porch and talk. Today we've been talking about my father. He called me, I tell him. Yesterday, Harold raises an eyebrow. He wanted to explain, to tell me his side of things. I swirl my lemonade. He says he didn't know about the countryside house. He says Diane handled all the paperwork and he just signed where she told him. Do you believe him? I think about it, really think. I believe he didn't ask questions, I finally say. I believe he chose not to know. I believe he's been choosing not to know for 35 years about a lot of things. Harold nods slowly. And what did you tell him? I told him I needed time, that I wasn't ready to see him yet, that if he wanted a relationship with me, he'd have to earn it. Not by explaining or apologizing, but by actually showing up consistently over time. He reaches over and squeezes my hand. That's a healthy boundary, sweetheart. We sit in comfortable silence for a while. The sunset deepens. Lauren texted me, I add. Last week, I heard. She asked if I would call her. She said she wants to talk. And will you? I look out at the lake, at the boats returning to their moorings, at the city lights beginning to flicker on in the distance. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. I pause. She knew Grandpa. Maybe not about the countryside house, but about the pressure, the manipulation, the lies. She was there every time Diane called me selfish or ungrateful. She never once defended me. She never once questioned what she was being told. That's true. If she wants to have a sister, she has to want to know the truth. She has to be willing to see who our mother really is, and I don't think she's there yet. I don't think she wants to be there. I take a breath. So, I'm not closing the door forever, but I'm not opening it until she's ready to walk through it honestly. Harold smiles, a small, proud smile. You've learned something important, Hazal. Something I wish I'd learned at your age. What's that? That love without respect isn't love, it's just habit. He looks at me with those clear, knowing eyes. You deserve both. I started therapy in April. My therapist's name is Dr. Julian Cross, and he specializes in family systems and boundary setting. Every Tuesday at 4, I sit in his office and talk about things I spent 32 years avoiding. It's hard. Some weeks it's exhausting. But it's also the most important thing I've ever done for myself. There's something else too. His name is Ben, and he's a local business owner I met at a community event in May. He has kind eyes and a terrible sense of direction, and absolutely no idea who the Freemans of the historic district are. He likes me, for my work, my laugh, my habit of talking to plants. It's new, it's slow, it's the first time I've let someone in without worrying about what they might think of my family. My grandfather finishes his lemonade and sets the glass down. He says, I've been thinking about what I want my legacy to be. You've already given me a legacy, I say, gesturing at the cottage around us. Not the property, he shakes his head. I mean the other thing, the thing that matters. I wait. I spent too many years keeping the peace, he says, staying quiet to avoid conflict, letting Diane become who she became because confronting her was too painful. He looks at me steadily. I don't want that for you. I want you to speak the truth even when it's hard. I want you to protect yourself even when it feels selfish. I want you to know that being kind doesn't mean being silent. I feel tears prick my eyes. I'll remember. Good. He pats my hand. Now, what's for dinner? All this emotion is making me hungry. I laugh, and the sound fills the evening air. This is my life now. A cottage that's really mine. A grandfather who loves me. A career that's growing. Boundaries that are firm. A future I'm building myself. One honest choice at a time. If you're listening to this, Maybe you're in a situation where your family expects you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. Maybe you've been told that setting limits is selfish. Maybe you're wondering if you're allowed to want more. You are. You're allowed. Being kind to yourself isn't the opposite of being kind to others, it's the foundation. I think about all the people who showed up when it mattered. Michael Vance, who never stopped being my friend and who uncovered the truth that set everything in motion. Gregory Nash, who held the evidence and waited for the right moment. Grandpa Harold, who chose honesty over silence and love over fear. And I think about the others, the ones who believed the lies, the ones who turned away, the ones who are still trapped in Diane's version of reality. I don't hate them. I don't even hate Diane. I feel something closer to sorrow. Sorrow for the life she could have had if she'd chosen differently. Sorrow for the relationships she destroyed because she couldn't let go of control. But I'm not responsible for her choices. I'm only responsible for mine. And my choice is this: to live honestly, to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, to protect my peace even when it costs me something, to love the people who love me back, truly and without conditions. To remember that protecting my peace is not a crime, it's a necessity. My grandfather was right. Love without respect isn't love, it's just habit, and habits can be broken. I broke mine. You can break yours too. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that you deserve respect, that your boundaries matter, that truth is worth telling, then I hope you carry that with you. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and remember, you're allowed to want more. You're allowed to have it. June 2025. I'm sitting on the porch of my cottage, watching the sun set over Lake Serena. The sky is streaked with orange and pink, and the water reflects it all like scattered jewels. Beside me, Ben holds my hand. Inside, Grandpa Harold is napping in his favorite armchair. He moved in with me last month, permanently. Serenity Pines was fine, he said, but it wasn't home. This is home. My phone buzzes. A text from Eleanor Granger. The Alumni magazine won an award. She wants to know if I'm free for lunch next week to discuss a new project. Another buzz. A text from Michael Vance. He started a podcast about community journalism and wants me to be his first guest. I smile and type back a yes to both. The legal case against Diane is still ongoing. It will be for a while, but the wheels are turning. Justice is slow, but it's happening. My father called again last week. He actually apologized this time. Not for Diane's actions, but for his own. For his silence, his absence, his choice to look away. I'm not ready to see him yet, but I'm closer than I was. Lauren and William broke off the engagement. I heard through a cousin that she moved to another city. A fresh start. I hope she finds what she's looking for. I hope she finds the courage to see the truth. And Diane? She's still fighting, still denying, still trying to control a narrative that's no longer hers to control. She lost the house. She lost her reputation. She lost her family. But she hasn't lost her pride. Maybe she never will. That's not my problem anymore. I take a deep breath and watch the sun slip below the horizon. The first stars are appearing. The lake is calm and still. This is my life now, full of people who love me, full of work that matters, full of peace I fought for and earned. I'm not the person I was 3 years ago. I'm not the woman who stayed silent to keep the peace. I'm not the granddaughter who accepted being treated as less. I'm Hazal Bennett, writer, teacher, granddaughter, survivor. And I'm finally free.